Normally on this channel, I sit here in my void and make videos about what's happening in the real estate market right now and how it affects you. I've always been fascinated by real estate and housing, so it doesn't take much work for my mind to connect something seemingly unrelated back to real estate. Which is why a show that I've been watching sent my mind off on a tangent after this scene.
Debbie, look at this.
Oh, this place will fly off the market.
You like it?
I mean, the square footage and the location alone makes it a steal.
I sell my place, you sell yours. We wouldn't even have a mortgage. I'm sure the boys would love having more space. You said you wanted to move in together.
Yes, it's just, I've been there almost 20 years.
Maybe it's time for a change? Sleep on it. That's all I'm asking, okay?
Now, it seems perfectly normal. Two adults are discussing selling their houses and buying another. Real people have that conversation every day. Now, maybe I've watched too many theorist videos, but I couldn't help but wonder, would it actually be that easy? Because in this show, entire cities get destroyed on a regular basis. Buildings are crushed just because they were too close to a fight. And people are expected to, rebuild and move on? Could anyone realistically afford to own a home at all? What is the housing market like in the world of... Okay, so let's start with something simple. Mark Grayson's house. From what we can see in the show, it's a pretty standard suburban home. 2 stories, attached garage, it's got a decent yard in a middle-class neighborhood. In real life, this house is probably 3 or 4 bedrooms, maybe around 2,000 square feet. In today's market, depending on the exact location, a house like that might cost around $600,000. Now, that is a lot of money, but we're still talking in terms of real life, not the show. Remember, we have to factor in that the world is constantly being destroyed. To figure out what would happen in a world like this, we don't have to guess completely. Unfortunately, there are real-world examples of what happens when homes get destroyed on a large scale, and the pattern is pretty consistent. When destruction becomes common, insurance becomes insanely expensive or disappears entirely. For example, after Hurricane Katrina hit in 2005, it caused over $40 billion in insured losses according to the Insurance Information Institute. Entire neighborhoods in New Orleans were wiped out. And what happened after that? Insurance companies didn't just pay out and move on. A lot of them raised prices dramatically. Others stopped offering coverage in those areas altogether. So even if you did want to rebuild, you either had to pay way more for insurance or you just couldn't get it at all. And that's not the only place where we see this trend. In the past few years, wildfires in California have become more frequent and more destructive. And because of that, insurance companies have started pulling back. For example, State Farm had announced that it would stop issuing new homeowner policies in California due to rising risk. And for people still able to get coverage, according to the California Department of Insurance, premiums in some areas went up drastically. And that's not all, because then there's Florida, where hurricanes have caused so much damage so consistently that multiple insurance companies have left the state entirely. And as a result, homeowners are dealing with premiums that have doubled or even tripled in some cases. Either way, these places lay out a pretty clear pattern. When destruction is rare, insurance is manageable. When destruction becomes common, insurance becomes expensive. And when destruction becomes unpredictable, there is no insurance. But there is one factor that these examples can't account for. They're tied to specific locations. Hurricanes hit coastal areas, wildfires hit certain other regions, but there are still safe places to live. But in Invincible, there really aren't any safe places. I mean, think about it. Invincible's father, Omni-Man, can fly across the entire galaxy in days. So just because the show is based on Chicago doesn't mean you'd be safe in Seattle. In the real world, disasters happen occasionally. Hurricanes and wildfires happen during certain seasons. They're often predictable, and people might have a day or two to evacuate somewhere safe before they hit. But in Invincible, this level of destruction happens all the time and without warning. Because the thing causing the destruction can move. It can show up anywhere at any time and level everything in its path. These characters aren't just powerful, they're basically sentient natural disasters. And if we had to account for something like that in the real world, everything about housing would fall apart.
It's the White House, Mom. Kinda important?
Oh, they rebuild that thing twice a year at this point.
Now, I know that I've been focusing a lot on insurance throughout this thing, but that's because it's a big part of your payment when you buy a house. See, when you have a mortgage, you're not just paying for the loan itself. You're usually paying what's called PITI. That stands for principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So even if the home price stays the same, if insurance goes up, your monthly payment goes up with it. Now, in a world like Invincible, insurance companies would have a huge problem because their entire business depends on risk being predictable. And here, it's just not. And realistically, a few things would happen. First, premiums would skyrocket. Second, companies would start pulling out of the market. And unlike in real life where they can leave certain states, here there's nowhere for them to go. They just have to close. And once that happens, the government likely steps in as the insurer of last resort. Because without insurance, you can't get a mortgage. And without mortgages, most people can't buy homes at all. So the moment insurance breaks, the entire housing market breaks with it. And that's not all, because you have two forces pulling in opposite directions at the same time. See, on one hand, housing prices should go up. Homes are constantly being destroyed, and that means that the supply is shrinking and rebuilding is expensive. In a normal market, that alone would push prices higher. But on the other hand, if you can't get insurance, you can't get a mortgage. And if most people can't get a mortgage, most people can't buy a home at all. So demand collapses. When you put those two things together, you don't get a normal housing market. You get a broken one. You'd likely have government-backed housing just to keep things functioning. Of course, wealthy buyers wouldn't have a problem because they can afford to self-insure, but then everyone else would probably be renting because ownership wouldn't make sense when you never know if your home would still be standing tomorrow. And going back to Mark's house, the price isn't even the real issue. The risk is. If insurance even exists, you could be looking at something like $20,000 or $30,000 a year just to insure a normal home. And at that point, the monthly payment becomes completely unrealistic for most people. The value of the house doesn't even really matter anymore because most buyers wouldn't be able to afford to own it in the first place. Anyway, that's been me overthinking a TV show that I've been watching. The idea just got stuck in my head and I decided to film it. It's kind of fine though because I've been meaning to branch out a little bit and make different types of videos, so it came at the right time, I guess. I don't know what I'm gonna do next for this sort of thing though, so if you've got any ideas, maybe of fictional worlds that have real estate implications, you can definitely leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And if you'd like to see anything else like that, maybe subscribe. Anyway, I'll catch you in the next one, whatever that might be.